What's up, Bills Mafia? Ryan Thomas here. A same face in a different place, same face in the same place as this is my first episode with the Buffalo Fambase Podcast Network. And I'm really excited to get things kicked off here every night, Wednesday night at 8. You guys can check me out, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, hosted by yours truly. Episode 1 of my debut, of course, as I mentioned, on the Buffalo Fambase Podcast Network. And of course, as the season rolls on, I will have guests. We will share guests on this podcast as you guys join me on the Buffalo Fambase Podcast YouTube, as well as Twitter, as well as my main hubs of content, my YouTube channel, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, as well as just my social media, Ryan Thomas and the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Facebook page. I greatly appreciate you all joining me tonight, Wednesday at 8, as you'll be joining me every Wednesday night at 8. As I mentioned, a great moment for my show and a great moment to be a Buffalo Bills fan despite the results of Monday night's game. So this is, of course, a Buffalo Bills postgame show, as well as a week 2 preview of the Bills' upcoming battle against the Las Vegas Raiders. I made sure I said that right. The Las Vegas Raiders. Week 2, the Bills host the Raiders for their home opener. I know quite a few people that'll be going to the game. I might be one of them. So I'm really looking forward to that. Maybe getting the chance to meet some of the Bills Mafia inside the confines of the parking lot that is obviously Highmark Stadium. So allow me to reintroduce myself in case you had never watched or listened to my show. My name is Ryan Thomas, born and raised in Western New York, longtime Buffalo Bills fan. And back in 2016, I started the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I've had former players, former coaches, writers, all encompassing sports personalities, beat reporters, you name it, as well as fellow content creators out there. And I think we're all kind of blended into one awesome milkshake, I guess you could say, in terms of what we bring to the table. I'm really happy to be a part of this team, the fan base, as I mentioned, and getting the chance to be on with you all tonight. Very much looking forward to this, as this is presented by, of course, 26 Shirts, the main sponsor of the Buffalo Fambase Network. And 26 Shirts is open Wednesdays 10 to 4, Thursdays 10 to 4, Friday 10 to 4, closed Saturday and Sundays open 10 to 4, Mondays and Tuesdays as well. Shout out to Del Reed, as of course 26 Shirts, behind every shirt there is a story. That's a phenomenal tagline, because it's more than a tagline. It means quite a lot to this community, and I'm really happy to obviously promote Del Reed and everything that he's done for this community, and continues to do, and will continue to do for the community. So, of course, let's get right to it. This is a Buffalo Bills post-game recap. What happened as the Bills fall apart to lose to the Jets 22-16 in overtime, falling to 0-1 to start the 2023 campaign? And I just want to start off by saying I had a great time Monday night watching the Buffalo Bills game. I was happy that the season was back. I'll start off on that good note. It's good to have football back, right? We're all very happy about that. And the wave of emotions, maybe it's recency bias, but I'll just start off by saying that the wave of emotions that I felt from the start of that game to what took place early in that game with the injury that was suffered by Aaron Rodgers, to knowing that that was just the beginning of this roller coaster ride of emotions that I would experience watching that game. I can't remember a game since the 13 seconds that was that much of an emotional roller coaster. And frankly, the thought that it was only going to start from there and potentially get worse from there is almost like an out-of-body experience, I would say. So this game starts off, Aaron Rodgers goes down. I'm thinking in my head, this game is ours. There's no way that the Bills are going to come away with a loss in this game. But as the game ebbed and flowed, we're aware of what happened. And what transpired was nothing short of a reality check for myself and a lot of us Bills fans that any given Sunday, Monday, or Thursday, anything can happen. This is a very tricky game that we play as fans, expecting one thing and then the reality, right? And the expectations were as soon as Aaron Rodgers went down that this game was ours. And the reality was it was not. It was never really ours until we saw 3 zeros on the clock with us having more points on the clock um, than the Jets or the opponent, rather. And, it's an old saying, it ain't over till it's over. But I can attribute this loss to a lot of things. Football is a team game. A lot of fans, and even I'm guilty of it myself sometimes, in the moment, we like to kind of point the finger at who could be at blame for this loss. And I think that that's very easy to feel that way. And it's justifiable because, frankly, this loss should not have happened. This was a game that was given to the New York Jets as a early Christmas present by the Buffalo Bills. This was a game that was in our hands, in our control throughout the majority of it. And the second half was an utter disaster. There was no way for me to come on my podcast debut with the Buffalo Fambase and sugarcoat what took place in the second half of that game. I was live tweeting. You guys out there can follow me at Ryan Thomas Take, live tweeting during the game that this was by far, I can't remember a start since Josh Allen's rookie year that was as bad as this one, since his rookie season. Josh Allen's rookie year was not that great. He looked like a raw product, like most talent evaluators thought he was. And year 2, year 3, Stephon Diggs obviously comes along, makes things a little bit more interesting, to say the least, in terms of Allen's prospect rising into a superstar that he is right now. And he is still a superstar. Don't get me wrong. Despite what you see from ESPN and the NFL Network and CBS and all of these networks right now, even, throwing some shade at Josh Allen. Of course, they're going to do that. It was his worst start that he'd ever had. But Josh Allen's still one of the best 5 quarterbacks in the National Football League. There's no debating that. But the reality of the Buffalo Bills right now is that there are plenty of causes to be concerned moving forward. One game is one game, especially when it's week 1. Each and every year you can go back to seasons in the past where some fluky things happen in week 1 that don't quite make a whole lot of sense. But as the season wears on, it all makes sense. Those games in November, December, the cream of the crop rises to the top. And the Buffalo Bills are looked at still as one of those teams that are in the crosshairs of Super Bowl contention. And very well so, and rightfully so, based on the talent that this team has. But the reality of the Buffalo Bills right now is that Josh Allen's play is, for now, a concern. We know the numbers. He leads the league in turnovers these last few years. But at the very least, we hope the version of Josh Allen we saw on Monday night, we don't see again at any point, let alone next week, this upcoming week, week 2 at home against the Raiders. Each game is as important as the last. As soon as this game was over, the record was the Jets 1-0. The record for the Bills is 0-1. You turn the page. We move forward. We have to do that, especially after week 1, moving forward from this game. But I have had a fear over the years, especially since the 13 seconds game took place, that not that the window is closing, not in terms of that stuff, just only in terms of what I'm looking at right now, is that this team, we can't look at it in the past. We can only look at it right now. Is this team the one to go to the Super Bowl? Is this team the one to win the Super Bowl? And I think on paper, this team got largely better this offseason. This might have been one of Brandon Beane's best off seasons that he had ever put together based on the cap issues that they had heading into the season based on the moves that they frankly made, that I loved the vast majority of the moves that they had made, especially the pick of Dalton Kincaid, which allowed Josh Allen to only get more weapons. And the main reason why I am so concerned about Josh Allen's play right now is the excuses that other quarterbacks can use, that other quarterbacks can make for themselves, as far as not having weapons, as far as a bad offensive line, as far as a bad run game. Those were excuses that Josh Allen, could kind of, not Josh Allen himself could use, but Josh Allen defenders could use. And they were valid reasons, not excuses, as to why Allen, struggled in moments. But now you go back and look at that game, you go back and look at the football focus aspect of things, the mathematics, percentages of how that game transpired. There were not many moments where Allen was truly pressured to a point to force those interceptions, outside of one where Quentin Williams hit him as he threw it. But the other three, or two rather, were ill-advised throws. And even the third one, while being hit, was an ill-advised throw. Do you want him to take the sack on that play? You never want a quarterback to take the sack. But when you go back and look at the all 22, you'd see a wide receiver open, you'd see a tight end open. And those are the things that just cannot happen, especially as Allen is in the league for as many years as he has been. Those are the things that we do not want to see by any stretch of the imagination heading into next week. And if we do, the for now changes to is a concern, because I'm going to put the asterisk on this game as a week one, for lack of a better term, hodgepodge of a fluke. I don't want to say it's a fluke. I don't want to make that sound like I'm not taking this loss seriously. I am. But at the same time, if it continues, then it's a concern. Do I think it will? I don't. And the reason I don't is due to the fact that after this game was concluded, Josh Allen really hit the nail on the head in terms of his assessment of the game. Realistically, the Bills would not have lost this game if Josh Allen didn't make those ill-advised throws. They wouldn't have. They would have moved down the field, and they would have put points on the board. Any points in a game as close as that one would have mattered. And frankly, you have to acknowledge, in a tip-of-the-cap move and moment, the fact that, yes, the Jets lost Aaron Rodgers for the season in this game, and yet they were still able to come away with the win, largely due in part by this Jets defense is for real. They were for real last year, led by mediocre quarterback play, which is why they went out and got Aaron Rodgers, went out and got weapons for him and Dalvin Cook to make that team better. And that's all blown up into smoke now. Zach Wilson looked at as the starter, but I don't know how legitimate we could look at that and say, hey, this is the path that the Jets are going to take with full confidence. There's other names out there. There's other free agent quarterbacks they could go out and get. That's another story for another day. I know I will talk about that on this podcast throughout the season, but in the coming weeks as well. But looking at this game with the Jets defense is very dynamic. They're very versatile, and they have plenty of players that can create opportunity, meaning turnovers. And this was a game in which they did their homework on Ken Dorsey. They did their homework on Josh Allen. They found ways to force Josh Allen into making decisions that he should not have made, especially at this point in his career. So, yes, Josh Allen played terribly. This was his worst start since his rookie year for the Buffalo Bills. He's had glimpses of moments like these in the past outside of his rookie year, but they're few and far between. And I really hope, sincerely hope, obviously, that this was just a blimp on the radar and not a trend that we're witnessing. Now, I will say that this was not all bad. This was not all bad. I will throw the silver lining out there. Now, there is a phrase that I've used on my show for the last, 6-7 years. And that is the Ryan Thomas takeover players of the game. And as I put this together, there's two that really do come to mind, actually three. The three that I always list I tried to keep it at three, and I keep it at three. Typically, it could be two defensive players. It could be, two offensive players. It could be three offensive players, right? But I try to keep it mixed up because I think there's plenty of praise to go around, especially in the case of these three players in particular. But the takeover players of the game, I just showed them there, but the takeover players of the game, the Ryan Thomas takeover players of the game, right? That this is how I see this game in terms of bright spots, in terms of the Ryan Thomas takeover players of the game. This is easily the three easiest picks I've probably had in the history of this show. Okay, and it's crazy because Josh Allen's not on this list for obvious reasons that I just mentioned. But Leonard Floyd, Matt Milano, and Stephon Diggs were easily the three takeover players of the game. And Leonard Floyd is listed for me at number one because it was his Bills debut, and maybe I'll throw this out there. The fact that he did have the hit that was the hit on Aaron Rodgers, or the wrap up that was on Aaron Rodgers, the intent, I'm not saying it, I'm saying it facetiously. The intent was not to take Aaron Rodgers out of the game there. It was a clean hit, obviously. I'm saying that in a joking fashion. Leonard Floyd balled out in his debut with the Buffalo Bills. He looked very good. This was a signing that I talked about on every podcast that I appeared on, whether it was the Nickel City podcast or 24/7 Buffalo Fandemonium's The K-Gun, as well as the regular season Rager that we had out in, of course, Canandaigua. And, I really loved this signing. I was shocked by it. Number one, I didn't even know at the time officially that Leonard Floyd was a free agent. So the fact that we got him on a 1-year deal late in the offseason, I was in love with that move. I still am, and I loved the way Leonard Floyd played. 56 on that Bills jersey looks really good, and we know why that is with Darryl Talley. So Matt Milano as well. I mean, this guy has been one of the best linebackers in the league. Man in that outside spot. You got Terrell Bernard, a young buck standing next to him. And, any linebacker that plays on the outside, weak side linebacker that's just coming into the league, you want to learn, you want to pull the tape, check the tape, see who are some of the good linebackers on the weak side. Matt Milano might be the best in the National Football League. He got another interception, made plenty of game-saving tackles that really showed that in those moments they were game-saving, and Matt Milano was there almost every time. And then, of course, I think, it goes without saying, Stephon Diggs is always in the discussion of being a takeover player of any game. But Monday night, he did his thing. When called upon, when looked at as a safety blanket for Josh Allen, he has always been that safety blanket. And dare I say it, when Allen does have those moments where he has these lapses in judgment of silly throws, he does know, hey, I got to get back to basics here. I got to get back to Stephon, got to get back to Gabe. I got to get back to Dalton Kincaid. It just didn't happen, as well as Dawson Knox. Just didn't happen Monday. And I think that is my biggest message to Josh Allen, would be to use the weapons around you. And Josh Allen knows that obviously he's got a lot more weapons now than what he had when he first came here. You go back and look at that 2018 roster all you want. I dare you to. You would know that the wide receiver position, not a single one of them is still on that roster, right? So it was 2018. It was a few years ago, but Isaiah McKenzie was the last one to leave the team, and that was only last offseason. So they've added quite a lot. They've tried to put as many pieces around him as humanly possible to ensure that he doesn't have to shoulder the load that he had shouldered before, and that he doesn't have to play as if he is shouldering the load that he is playing with. He's playing as if he's got to put the world on his shoulders. He doesn't have to do that. John Robert, thank you so much for firing away a comment here. I am waiting for a comeback against the Raiders. I couldn't agree more. We all are. Of course, I know John is pumped up for the game. I'm sure of it, as am I. And John, I want to share a sentiment in regards to this Sunday's game that I've been echoing for years. Granted, it's funny. Years ago, I'd go back and I would say to myself, I want the Bills to play on prime time more often, but we're not good enough yet. When we get good enough, we'll be on prime time. Now we're on prime time, and I can't wait for a Sunday game at 1 o'clock. I just want football the way that I feel like it's meant to be watched, whether it's college football on a Saturday or pro football on a Sunday. Not Saturday night, not Sunday night, Sunday. Sunday, like during the day, 1 o'clock, noon, whatever, 4 even, whatever it is. I love that Sunday experience in the daytime. There's nothing like it, and I'm really excited to dive into this game as well. The Bills Week 2 preview of the Buffalo Bills Week 2 battle between the Las Vegas Raiders, and this is the Bills' home opener. Okay, and this was a game that when the schedule was released, I flocked to it. Right, I had to flock to the home opener. Much to my dismay at the time, I was in a line. I didn't have the season ticket privileges, so I was in a queue on Ticketmaster, calling my buddies, trying to figure out what I can do to get tickets to this game, because the Bills home opener every year is special. It really is. And I think usually we're at a point where a 1-0 start to a home opener would be nice, right? Or even an 0-0 start the first week of the season being the home opener is usually my preference, because it's like this new optimism is kind of just in the air. You can smell the hope. You can smell the tailgate. You can see the sunshine in September in Western New York, which is pretty beautiful. But for this one, starting the season 0-1 and playing a team that is 1-0 that came away with a 1-point win over the Denver Broncos and the Las Vegas Raiders, I know that the urgency needs to be there, but it needs to be there effectively. And I think, dare I say it, when I go back and look at this game against the Jets, I think as soon as Aaron Rodgers went down, at least how it appeared as if as soon as Aaron Rodgers went down, the Buffalo Bills, at least Josh Allen, said, I got to make some plays here, and we got to run this up. Let's take advantage of the fact that Aaron Rodgers isn't in there, and let's try to make something happen quick. Let's put some points on the board. To an extent, I understand that, right? Like you want to put it on the divisional opponent, but I think they got ahead of themselves, and I think most importantly, Josh Allen got ahead of himself. And I got to say, I have concerns about this season, and those fall in line with the schedule. The schedule's tough, the division's tough, but the one main concern that I had heading into the year was the moment that Leslie Frazier stepped down and Sean McDermott shortly thereafter stated that he'd be taking over the play calling for the defense as well as being the head coach of the team. Now, that's very hard to do. Whether Sean McDermott's been a head coach for 7 years, he was a D coordinator for 6 years in Carolina, I believe. So, that's very hard to do both of those things at once. But the defense played pretty well despite that. So can the defense play well in these conditions, in these circumstances each and every week? Thus far, they've done it. The offense is what let me down last week. And a lot of Bills fans right now, they're on Twitter or X, I'll say, and that's what it's called now, of course. And they want to criticize Ken Dorsey. Now, Josh Allen wanted Ken Dorsey as his OC. That's probably a large portion of the reason why he became that, right? He got to kind of say, hey, let's make sure that Ken sticks around. I don't want to lose Dable and Dorsey. I want to have Ken Dorsey around. And Ken Dorsey wanted to stick around. Why wouldn't you when you're coaching Josh Allen, right? And an offense with this much talent on it. So when I look at Dorsey's performance last week, the scheme, some of the plays I really liked. I loved seeing Knox and Kincaid out on the field together at the same time. I want more of that. I want more of those two feeding off of each other. I want more of Gabe Davis thrown in there. That was one of the best plays of the game early in the game where Allen was able to find him as they were driving down the field. And James Cook, I thought, when given the opportunity, finishing with 12 carries in the game, 12 rushing attempts, I want to see 15 to 16, 17 carries each and every week from James Cook. And that means less pass attempts for Allen, but it also means less of an opportunity for Allen to throw a turnover. And yes, Allen loves to make these plays. He's a live by the sword, die by the sword quarterback in that regard, almost like Brett Favre. But this kid's got way too much talent. And sometimes it's almost like he wants to do too much. He doesn't know what to do with the oozing of talent that he does have. There's so many things that this dude can do. It's just that he doesn't need to. He needs to take what the defense gives him. And that's an old cliche from the late, great John Madden, but that's what the greats live by. Joe Montana, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, any of the GOATs over the years in any era was able to just survey the field and just take, rather than force. And I hope that this week against the Raiders is one that the Bills just take, and make play after play after play with what the defense provides, because the Raiders got some guys on their defense, Max Crosby being one of them. They held Denver to 16 points. That says a lot. I do believe Denver is a better team than what people think on paper. They're a better team than the way they've played. They have the potential to be better. They're going in with Sean Payton last week. They hold Sean Payton's offense to 16 points. Their defense is pretty good. It's not great, but it's pretty decent. And their offense has two very good players on it, Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams. Is that going to be enough for the Raiders to get it done against the Buffalo Bills? And of course, I've said this, once, I'll say it again. It just depends on which version of the Bills that shows up. If it's a Bills team that wants to beat the Raiders, they'll win this game. If it's a Bills team that wants to try not to lose against the Raiders, rather than playing to win, they're going to make it hard for themselves in the process of trying to beat the Raiders. And that's a trend that I've seen far too much. And this goes to a question that I want to ask the Bills fans. It is week one, coming off of week one. We are going into week two. I want to be realistic when asking this question. I don't want to predate anything or talk too soon. But let's just look into our crystal ball for a second. With this record of 0-1, let's say the Bills, hypothetically, go to the AFC wildcard round this year and lose. Should Sean McDermott be on the hot seat? If the Buffalo Bills lose in the AFC divisional round like they did last year, should Sean McDermott be on the hot seat? That's a question that I want to ask the viewing audience. I don't want to answer it. I want to ponder that question, let it marinate. I will put out a Twitter poll in regards to it to just see what you guys and gals think in the wonderful world that is the Bills Mafia land, and obviously get some answers on that. Because when you go back and look at last year and previous years, I'm not talking about just the loss to Cincinnati in the divisional round. I'm talking about the loss to Minnesota. I'm talking about the loss to the New York Jets in the Meadowlands. And I'm talking about the loss to the Miami Dolphins. When this team loses, it's rare. I get that. This team's great. This team has so much talent on it. But when they lose, it is so epically bad. And it's in a form and fashion that breaks your heart. It's like a tragedy. What taking place on a football result, to see this team that is so talented not achieve their full potential. Who is that? Who's the blame in that? There's plenty of blame to go around in that regard. But I think there is a saying in football that when a team doesn't achieve its full potential, it's a reflection on the coaching. And this is a very important coach-driven game, unlike any other in sports. This is not managing a baseball game with lefty-righty strategy. This is not 5-on-5 basketball. This is not a trainer training a fighter against another trainer and another fighter. This is 11 on 11. It's a brutal game. Despite how safe they try to make it, it'll always be brutal. It's football. And it's a battle of attrition. We know all the cheesy, corny sayings, but it's true. They're all true. And they've always been true throughout the history of this game. But when a team doesn't achieve its full potential, usually it's a reflection of their coach. And I love Sean McDermott for what he has done for this team. But we have an expectation largely due to the performance that Sean McDermott provided these last few years that I want to see that expectation meet reality. And when the expectation hasn't met reality in the last 3-4 years, when will it? And will that time pass you by if you don't meet that expectation? If the reality is far and away what your expectations were? And that's a question that I have for the fans. I'd like to know what their thoughts are on if the Bills lose in the wild card round this year. Dare I say it, God forbid, miss the playoffs or lose in the AFC divisional round. Once again, is Sean McDermott on the hot seat? I want your guys' take on that. I'm not providing my take on that. I don't want to answer the question. I want you guys to tell me, and then I will respond to the answers that you guys have. So I'll put that out on my Twitter at Ryan Thomas Take. You can follow me there as this show is streamed live every Wednesday night at 8 on the Buffalo Fambase Network. I'm really happy to be a part of the Bills Mafia Podcasting Network, the one-stop shop for all things Buffalo Bills football. So previewing this game, obviously I do think this is a very winnable game. And I think it's a very winnable game due to the fact that the Bills know the mistakes that they made last week. And I think that it's painfully obvious to them that they need to make this one a reality in terms of a win. But for this Buffalo Bills defense, I think this defense is, dare I say it, a little bit underrated in comparison to what most people are talking about coming off of this loss. Special teams, punt coverage, however, might need some work heading into this one, but I don't anticipate the Bills punting much in this game. I think the offense is going to get it right. I think that we will see a good offensive effort on Sunday at 1 against the Raiders. At home, the Buffalo Bills taking on the Raiders. And the one head scratcher for me with the Raiders in terms of what they did this offseason, what they chose to do, was moving on from Derek Carr and doing it in a form and fashion that was truly odd. They tried to make a trade. They weren't going to settle. So they just kind of benched him and then just waited for him to just go away pretty much. And, I look at Derek Carr and I always thought he was pretty decent. I always thought that he was somebody that, made the most of what he could. And they really did not do him many favors while he was there. They were changing personnel constantly. He was there for all the just ups and downs of the coaching staff and everything like that. And then they let him go and they go with Jimmy Garoppolo. And I don't know what the difference is between Derek Carr and Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't difference meaning is Jimmy Garoppolo better than Derek Carr? Yeah, it's like wearing a different fabric, t-shirt and saying, "Oh, this fabric's better," but they both look the same in terms of on the field, their ability, what they can do, what they can provide. There's that gif out there, or that meme rather, of the gentleman opening up his Christmas gift with two plaid shirts, the one he's wearing and the other one that he's holding up as his Christmas gift. It's the same shirt, right? Like it's out there. Check it out for yourselves. It's a funny meme. But literally, that's what I thought when the Raiders went out and got Jimmy Garoppolo and let go of Derek Carr. I just didn't see it. And I don't see it. I don't see Jimmy G as a long-term solution there. So I think that this is a matchup that the Bills can exploit and try to get after Jimmy Garoppolo. Anytime any team has been able to get after him, he is an easily rattled quarterback. Rattled meaning he won't throw the football if he's afraid to get hit. He'll hold on to it. He'll take sacks. Whereas Josh Allen is the exact opposite. He'll run around like a demon, crazy, chuck balls 60 yards down the field, and either make a miraculous play or a miraculously frustrating play. So I look at this game as one that the Bills will win, and I look at this game as one that I expect to score that will be a close score, because I do want to provide respect to the Raiders in the sense that they did start this season 1-0. I don't know if this game will be a blowout. I actually hope it is a hard-fought game for just the mentality of the Buffalo Bills. And I say it in this regard. If the Bills go into their home stadium and blow out the Raiders, it might give them a false sense of security that coming off of that loss to the Jets, I don't think they need that. They need to continue to grind. They need to continue to put forth an effort that is one that would see them grind teams into the ground, winning games. And I'm not talking grinding them into the ground by running the football 700 times in a game. I'm being, a little facetious, and I'm over exaggerating in saying that, but I'm talking about a win that is a methodical beatdown. And maybe that is what I could see in the score prediction. But I do believe that this will be a highly impressive defensive effort by the Buffalo Bills. And I do believe it's a game that we will see the Bills really take control of the Raiders, of shutting down Josh Jacobs. That's priority number one to me, more than pressuring Jimmy Garoppolo even. And then obviously the coverage with Devontae Adams, one of the best wide receivers on the planet. So I'm going with a score prediction that is, I think, pretty reminiscent of most games between the Buffalo Bills and the Las Vegas Raiders, or in Bills Raiders history. I do see a close game. I do see it going down 27-17. And of course, I do have the Bills getting back to brass tacks, getting a win over the Raiders, as this game is extremely important. Coming off of this loss to the New York Jets, the Bills cannot by any means start their season 0-2. It cannot happen. This has to be a W, and I hope we see it. Now, as for the other teams in the division, the Jets 1-0, losing Aaron Rodgers, that's going to drastically change their season. But this Jets defense is for real. The Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills, those two games between those two teams might be the two most important games, arguably, by two teams, not including Kansas City or Cincinnati, in the entire National Football League. When Tua is healthy, which is rare, I know that, but when Tua is healthy, the Miami Dolphins are a dangerous squad. They are. And when we play Miami, we got to be ready. They're coming, right? So get this win. It's important to get this win, obviously. Go to 1-1 and see ourselves on the sunny side, 500, heading into week 3 against the Washington Commanders. And I'm really looking forward to this one Sunday, 1 o'clock, the way that football is meant to be watched, in my personal opinion. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to my episode debut on the Buffalo Fambase Network. Of course, Bills Mafia has been great to me over the years, getting the chance to meet many members, even the late, great Pancho Bila of Bills fandom lore. Pancho was an awesome guy. Bills Elvis I know very well, growing up in the same town, same area. So not only meeting the famous fans, any fan, I want to say to you guys and gals out there that this is a real treat for me, getting the chance to talk to and meet more members of Bills Mafia, as this journey has had so many fun pathways and continues to be a fun one. So I greatly appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. This is the Thomas Takes Sports Podcast. I'm Ryan Thomas, tuned in on the Buffalo Fambase Podcast Network as well. You can follow me along on any audio podcasting platforms, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. You can subscribe on YouTube to my channel, like the Facebook page, and even feel free to add me on Facebook or follow me on Twitter at Ryan Thomas Take X, not Twitter, at Ryan Thomas Take. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Take care. And last and certainly not least, go Bills.